Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Kerry Oceans with the U.S. Composting Council, and I'm here to welcome everyone to the Composting Collaborative's October webinar on nurturing entrepreneurs to grow compost infrastructure. We're letting just a few more people join the webinar. Everyone will be on mute as we throughout the webinar, and then that helps just assure good sound quality. But throughout the presentations today, please feel free to ask questions at any time. And you do that by using the chat box on the left-hand side of your screen, your webinar screen. At the end of the webinar, we'll be sending a recording of the webinar to everyone who registered. That'll happen sometime either later today or probably tomorrow. If this is the first time you're participating in a Composting Collaborative event, welcome. Composting Collaborative is an initiative that was founded by Green Blue, Biocycle Magazine, and the U.S. Composting Council almost 2 years ago. The collaborative seeks to unite compost manufacturers, consuming-facing businesses, and policymakers to share best practices and resources, as well as generate innovative solutions to share challenges. This monthly seminar series is one way we aim to highlight best practices and case studies. Our mission is to accelerate composting access and infrastructure to improve soil health and divert compostable resources from disposal. Since we kicked off, we've grown to have 80 members and over 1,900 subscribers, and that includes all of you. This month, we're going to be hearing from 4 speakers talking about nurturing entrepreneurs to grow compost infrastructure. So I'm just going to do some brief introductions of our 4 speakers, and then we'll let them take off with the meat of today's presentation. So we'll be starting off with Laura Hinchcliffe and Mark Rose from Living Earth. Mark is the president and CEO, and Laura is the municipal solutions manager at Living Earth. Living Earth is a leading composting and organics material products company in Texas. Living Earth partners with municipalities to design and execute sustainable solutions for municipal diversion of green materials and commercial diversion of vegetative food scraps. Currently, more than 750,000 tons of diverted organic materials are received annually by Living Earth for sustainable materials management. We'll hear more about the history of Living Earth from Mark and Laura, with some thoughts on where the industry might be heading and what entrepreneurs might be focused on. Next, we'll hear from Meredith Danberg-Ficcarelli with Common Ground Compost, the winner of last year's inaugural Emerging Composter Challenge at the Composting Council's annual conference. Meredith is a green business entrepreneur with a master's in urban policy analysis and sustainability management from the New School in New York. In 2012, she conceived, co-founded, and managed a sustainable waste management organization in Beirut, Lebanon, called FERN, the Food Establishment's Recycling Nutrients, which presented a model for green job creation in the Middle East. After returning from Beirut, Meredith worked at the Lower East Side Ecology Center as a marketing director and program manager for the Gowanus e-waste warehouse. Meredith volunteers and works with organizations across the Northeast, such as City Soil in Boston and Talk Trash City in New York, helping businesses implement composting and recycling solutions. And we'll wrap up today with Isaac Berg from the New Jersey Compost Council, which is one of our latest chapters of the U.S. Composting Council. And he's part of the U.S. Composting Council's Young Professional Group. Isaac is a 2017 graduate of the Boston University Questrin School of Business with concentrations in finance and energy and environmental sustainability. He studied economics, technology, and policy, driving organic waste hauling while working for Mission Point Partners, and is helping to found the New Jersey Composting Council, and will soon be serving as secretary. And he'll be talking a little more about this year's Emerging Composter Challenge. So we're in for a great set of presentations. If you've just joined us, a reminder that the recording of today's webinar will be distributed after the webinar. And if you have a question, please put that in the chat box. And with that, Laura, I'll turn it over to you.
Come together with Green Glue and USCC. So today we're just going to take our 15 minutes to kind of give you a brief history of Living Earth and how the company is reflective of the growth in the compost industry as a whole. And towards the end, kind of give you our 30,000-foot view of the compost industry going forward. So I'd like to turn the time over to our president, Mark Rose.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate everybody taking the time to be on. Like you know, I'm Mark Rose. I'm the president and CEO of Living Earth. I've been with Living Earth for 28 years. Prior to that, I owned a business here in Dallas called Dallas Organic Products. And when a little history on in the early 90s, when recycling green waste was where the industry was going, and all the talk was about was recycling green waste. All the big waste haulers ran out and bought a compost company of some kind. And in 1990-91, we were bought by Living Earth was bought by Republic and in Houston. And Living Earth started out in Houston in 1985 and grew to be a fairly sizable business, and with the goal of the guys that Dudley Warner and Bruce Thornton that started the company wanted to do something with all the grass in Houston. You know, Houston kind of subtropical climate there, grows vegetation like crazy. So they wanted to do something with that. They both worked at big chemical plants down there and wanted to get away from that, and had this idea to start Living Earth, and they did in 1985. And I knew them, and after they sold the Republic, they had marching orders to grow the business, so they came and bought my company in Dallas. And a couple of years after that, I took over the company, the entire company, as the president of the company, and did a great job with it. As you can see on the very first slide, these bring back old memories of you know, and one of the things that differentiates I don't know, the way a lot of people do it. You see that these are the guys that founded the company, and that's our first grinder and conveyor, and you know, working in the trade show booths, a lot of really hands-on work, and a lot of marketing, and you know, and a lot of guys on this call know me, and you know, the marketing thing is so important, having a home for this. We're for the products. You know, Living Earth, we have a very complete sales staff. We have 9 people that work sales for us full time. Most of them are certified nursery professionals through the Texas Nursery and Landscape Association, which we're very active in, and they're certified in the nursery industry. And when customers have different concerns, problems, or whatever, our people are certified horticulturists, and they can go out and diagnose normally what's going on. Typically, a lot of people, the first thing they're overwatering, and pull up a plant or something, and it's got quite an odor, and you got too much something's gone septic on you. But anyway, we got a lot of good trained people. The next the slide is our. You caught up there, Laura?
Yep.
Okay. That is this is really fond memories. This was our Dallas site 25 years ago, and at the other end of the property where Laura and I sit. But that was our original office, and some of the things that are this building and bagging equipment and screen there on the end. I personally built that stuff, and it's all hands on deck. When we got going, things we're a very small company, and it's just to have the and we built that building too. All the mechanicing, welding, driving, loading, heavy equipment. There just weren't the dollars to have third parties do it. So there's a lot of doing things yourselves. As a matter of fact, one of my oldest daughter used to be the co-pilot in the dump trucks on the dump truck on the weekend making deliveries. And I think I was the first person on the planet to have a cell phone in their dump truck. So, but we've come a long way, and today we have. You can look at the chart that kind of shows how we've evolved. Like I say, we started out in Houston, 1985. Been working with the city of Houston the whole time on what to do with the grass in Houston, and we have a contract with the city of Houston where we bring in 545,000 homes every week into 5 Living Earth facilities. And it works out really good because the Living Earth facilities they just happen to have one in each of the city is broke up into quadrants, and we have a facility that has to be in each of those quadrants to service the city of Houston where they're not having to drive very far. But anyway, as you can see through time, we started in Houston, then we were bought by Republic, and then through the years we did some acquisitions, opened a bunch of new sites, and then in 2007, Republic divested of us, and which was fine, and they were in the process of buying Allied Waste. So that when they did that, they divested everything that they considered non-core to their trash business, and so at that time, our management bought the company, and we took on some investors, and that worked out real well, and you can see all the growth since then. Our most recent activities this year, we opened up in College Station, we opened up in Waco, and we did the acquisition of a company in Tennessee that has we have 5 locations in Nashville and Knoxville. So company's grown very nicely. I think most people in this business will say the weather has not been kind to the business this year. We had a lot of rain early, and then I got the extreme heat in the summer, and then counting on a nice spring, a nice fall, that planting fall, and got a lot of rain. So you gotta have be prepared for those, because even as I think we've done as good a job as anybody creating markets for our own materials, but when you have different weather events, like all the tremendous rains we've had lately, your products, just nobody can use them, so you're just basically shut down, and you need to you got to be ready to weather those things out. But you can see from the maps that we have, those are the Dallas, Houston, and our Waco, College Station sites. So we got pretty good coverage. All the sites are production sites, except we have 2 outlet sites. Currently, the one in Double Oak and the one in Rockwall are outlet sites for us. But otherwise, we take in tipping fees, we stick with green waste, produce, materials like that. Laura will get into in just a minute. But that's part of the reason you see, somebody will say, why do you have all these locations? And that goes with our, we got to make our product convenient and our disposal convenient. Otherwise, if you're driving across town, and that's costly to your customers, it's costly to the communities that are using your facilities for disposal. So environmentally, it makes sense to have the sites, infield sites, conveniently located for the customers.
So obviously, as the company has grown, as Mark mentioned about the infield sites, we really keep our feedstock very consistent at locations, given the fact that we're very close to businesses and sometimes residential areas. So the pictures you see is representative of the type of feedstocks we take in. Our landscape contractors are a big portion of our business model, bringing us discards from the various jobs, the seasonal leaf collection, and then obviously in the springtime the grass clippings and other yard debris that is just terrific for our compost feedstock. We've also increased our arrangements with commercial generators that you can see the top right-hand corner with the produce discards that come from the large packaging companies that bring us those materials, and that also has been very beneficial for our compost feedstock. At the bottom of the picture of the screen, landscape contractors, tree chipping companies that bring us the brush, and then the other 2 slides of the rear loaders. We have a number of residential contracts in place that gives us that consistent, clean supply of feedstock that's very important to the success of our company. And with those materials, we get into the manufacturing of our products. Obviously, from when Mark showed you the first couple of pictures and where things are today in the compost industry, the type of machines and equipment that are prevalent throughout the industry, and how it's really helped us increase, again, that footprint. Did you want to add to that, Mark?
Yeah, I would agree. We don't do any deep packaging, but like I was talking about earlier, we stick with the more basic, clean material. Not anything that we are in field, so we can't. We do have some odorous stuff, but not as odorous as others. So we do have to watch ourselves. So we do limit what we take in. We don't take any biosolids, grease trap waste, meat, any of that kind of stuff. But we take in, like Laura showed in the slides, we take in the stable bedding, leaves, grass, sawdust, lots of produce and materials like that. But as we all know, like I said earlier, when we got going, the grass was all everybody talked about was getting the grass out of landfills. Now it's all turned toward food. In the last couple of years, we've started taking in more and more, pre-consumer food waste from industrial or people manufacturing these cut-up bowls of food and things like that of fruit. And matter of fact, I think here at our Dallas site, we have one major company that brings in about 250 tons every night of those produce cut-offs, so it's pretty good volume. But otherwise, we try to, like I say, keep it as basic as we can. We don't, on these infield sites, we've had a lot of different guys that, these so-called experts out that, are just kind of dumbfounded about how nice the compost that we actually produce is with using our static piles and good, clean, well composted material that meets STA specs, and I know that and Kerry can confirm, but I'm fairly certain that Living Earth is the largest STA participant.
And given our time to cover the slides, this slide has a lot of information in it. Y'all will be getting copies afterward, but it really shows you, again, you saw in the pictures of the inbound material how we keep everything source separated. And as you can see in this slide, that is specific to the type of materials we want to make on the back end, and keeping the materials separated to manufacture the type of products that our customers desire, especially on the compost. You can sell so much compost, but the other item that we really do well with is making the various soil blends that work within our marketplaces in Texas, South Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth area, Tennessee.
Yeah, and Lori, that's a great point, because people that don't a lot of people don't realize that there's not a lot of markets are by different areas of the country, and people think Texas is agricultural, but there is not a true agricultural market in Texas for the products we use, we make. We're selling into the landscape market. That's the largest market. There's just not people, growing crops like in California or elsewhere. And then you get into the regional things, and we notice that subtropical areas like Houston, the plants grow very easily. They got sandy soil. There's not a huge, not much demand and need to amend the soil to have success. So, so that's a very little of that going on. So we do sell a lot of prepared soil mixes and a lot of mulch. And the Dallas market has more clay type soil, so more people are amending the soil. So depending on where you're at and what part of the country, and in Tennessee we got a lot of rock out there, so they're using a lot of soil, prepared soils out there. So it depends on where you're at, and your product lineup is going to need to vary. But I remember back when we They didn't even know what a soil was, and the compost was, and we literally did not even have on our price lists or price sheets compost, because nobody bought it, and we got rid of our compost by putting it in our soil mixes. They could comprehend a garden soil or lawn soil or something like that, but the phone absolutely never rang for a load of compost. And how they could screw up saying mulch and mulch, match, mulch, all this. And 30 years ago, mulch was a new product, and they're commercially available, and and people were using lava rock and all that kind of stuff back then. But now, it's different. You go to any store and mulch is available, but years ago things have changed. So anyway.
So obviously we need to get our time over to Meredith, but one of the items we did want to bring up, and we can come back to it later on if so desired, but is where we see things going. Obviously there's been an uptick in municipal programs, also the landfill ban on organics. So there is a continued growth in new areas that the market and that the compost industry is growing in. Obviously compostable plastics, who would have thought a number of years ago that we would be manufacturing compostable products so that you could compost your utensils and packaging. So where we see the market in Dallas and Texas and Tennessee in general, the challenges that we have obviously is route density and proximity to processors. The solution that one of the studies done at the Houston Galveston Area Council, and you can find it online, is a development of a database to connect the generators of the food discards and green waste with the collection companies and with the processors, and then filling that the additional gaps are the number of smaller entrepreneurs that are out there, especially, I was surprised how many I came across in the Texas market because it's just grown so much, of keeping things local and the different services that are available out there. This is just a snapshot of 4 companies, Austin, Dallas, and Houston, where a woman-owned business filled the niche to actually provide the collection services and connect the generators with the processors, to your smaller entrepreneurial compost companies that are doing collection within neighborhoods and then keeping that local with their community gardens. So I think at this point we probably need to move on to Meredith, but we'll look forward to answering your questions at the end of the program.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Meredith Danberg-Ficarelli, and I'm based in New York City. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what we're doing here. Mark and Laura, thank you very much. That was a really great introduction, and I love learning about the evolution of the industry that I'm now so deeply entrenched in. So I run a company called Common Ground Compost. Obviously, we're based in New York City, and our main operation is a consulting company. So we help set up composting and recycling programs for businesses, looking at logistics and operations, staff training, waste audits, helping negotiate contracts with commercial waste haulers, and everything that comes with that. In New York City, one of our big challenges on the commercial waste side is transparency. So helping vet those commercial waste haulers, and also helping our clients understand where their material is going. I'm going to talk a little bit later about the processing capacity in the New York City area. This is one of the challenges that we face is, people are starting to care more about their trash, and the industry needs to catch up. I think that the compost industry is obviously doing a great job of that, and I believe that the landfill industry is lagging pretty far behind, not surprisingly. So another service that we offer, zero waste event services, similar to the consulting services, but obviously focused on events. Lots of certified compostable products in these events. That's the direction that things are going in. We're challenged by single-use disposables. While it's great that we're able to find certified compostable options, from an environmental perspective, single-use disposables are not a good thing. So we're interested in trying to find alternatives to those disposables, but there's sort of a necessary evil at this point. And then the third operation that we run, the third program, is called Reclaimed Organics. This is a bicycle-powered compost collection program. Laura Rosenshine founded our company in 2014. And she launched this program out of a community garden in the East Village in Manhattan. This program is still operating. I'll show some pictures in a little bit of our original bike and trailer, but you see images here of Thunder, the compost trike. We won the emerging composter pitch competition last year, and that funding allowed us to get this trike, which was really exciting, really allowed us to scale our operation. We have about 40 clients right now. We're continuing to grow, and I'll talk a little bit more about that operation and how it works. In terms of processing or collecting and processing, we run a small bokashi compost system. So it's a 2-phase system where the first phase is bokashi fermentation. So in the upper left corner, you see this larger white container with food scraps in it, and then the smaller gray container, that's our bokashi. It's coffee chaff. So we collect the waste product of the coffee roasting process from a roaster in Brooklyn, and then we inoculate it with effective microorganisms, lactic acid yeast, and phototropic bacteria, along with blackstrap molasses. Mix that all together. That's our inoculated substrate that we then add to our larger. This is a 35-gallon bin that you're seeing from above. So we ferment in for between 2 and 4 weeks, depending on the season. And then the second phase is an aerated static pile system. You can see in the bottom image that wooden bin. Obviously not a huge operation, but it works really well. We've reached really high temperatures in that pile. 150, 160 degrees are really standard. And it's been working really well. We collect more than we can process. So on the upper right corner, you see this row of beautiful green compost totes. We also work with a commercial waste hauler. So we consolidate at our garden, and then they pick this material up overnight. Right now, we were actually unfortunately affected by a fire that happened next door to our garden. All of our equipment is fine, but we are on hold in terms of processing on site because the fire marshal is conducting an arson investigation. So that's fun. Moving on, I wanted to make sure that everyone's on the same page about how trash works in New York City, because it's important to understand the framework in order to get how things work. So we're talking about around 21,000 tons per day leaving the city. That's total waste, combined residential and commercial material. It's split approximately down the middle in terms of volume between public and private waste. So on the left side of this slide, we see the Department of Sanitation. That's obviously a city agency. They have more than 9,000 employees. They're picking up public waste, so apartment buildings, government institutions, public schools, and other public operations. That happens during the day. And then overnight, we have the commercial waste collections happening. So all commercial businesses, whether it's an office building or a freestanding restaurant, is required by law to contract with a commercial waste hauler. There are not regulations around which haulers one business can contract with. We'll talk about some of the inefficiencies there in a minute. But again, in terms of volume, it's about the same on both sides. The data that's available is weighted to the residential side because that's what the Department of Sanitation handles. The commercial waste, it's a bit harder to find data on it because so many different companies are participating in that industry. So in terms of some of the challenges that we face, this is focused on routing, collection, and also specifically on organics. So on the residential side, the left-hand side of the slide, we can see that back in May of 2018, the city had to halt the expansion of their organics program for residents. We'll talk about the details of this a little bit later. And on the commercial side, we're looking at a heat map of the 5 boroughs of New York City. And this is showing the inefficiency in routing that's happening on the commercial waste trucking side of things. So overnight, just overlapping truck routes from different companies. You can see it's pretty dense, pretty heavy. The white dots that you see in that map are all the different transfer stations in the city, and there's just a lot of inefficiency in terms of lots of different companies servicing the same exact neighborhoods. There is change coming. The city has been working on an implementation plan for a zoned system that will essentially roll out a geographically based bidding system for the entire 5 boroughs of Manhattan. Haulers will have to bid on specific zones, and through those bids, they'll have to prove that they have the capacity to collect organics in addition to recyclables and trash. So this will present a really huge opportunity for businesses. Right now, only a handful of commercial waste haulers are offering organics collection service, and even that is not transparent. Not all of them are taking their material to actual compost sites. I'll give some more detail about that in a minute. So in terms of the breakdown of the waste stream, we're looking at a residential waste breakdown in this pie chart on the left, and again, residential data in the map on the right. But huge opportunity here. We're talking about 34% of the residential waste stream that's organic. And obviously, as we all know, food waste is the heavy and wet portion of the waste stream. And if we're talking about shipping trash out of New York City, removing the organic portion will help us to save money, ideally, obviously, depending on a lot of other things in terms of what compost infrastructure we're using. But right now, the New York City's 2018 City Council budget had a line item of $380 million for waste exports. Again, that's just for residential waste, taxpayer dollars to ship our garbage to other states. So remove 34% of that, we're looking at significant potential savings for the city. This next chart is just a visualization of the same data. I like to draw specific attention to this diverted thing on the top right corner. This is the material that's currently making its way into a recycling bin. So where the green and blue lines are together in the top right corner, everything else is going to landfill or incineration right now. So there's, again, a really big opportunity for waste reduction here. And we're looking at, 75% of what's going in the trash is going to landfill, and 25% is going to incineration. In terms of regulations, right now, only 286 businesses are required to compost. Those are represented by the icons at the bottom of this slide. They're the largest generators. And starting this upcoming winter, 2019, the next tier will kick in for another tier of businesses. So those are, as of August 15, 2018, right? Those really still large food establishments, retail grocers, and chain food businesses. So Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, maybe 7-Eleven. And it's tiering down. And the idea behind those tiers, it's based on assessed processing capacity. So right now, I know that this chart is really small, but the idea behind it, the city is building their regulations based on assessments of processing capacity that they are doing of the compost sites that are within 100 miles of the city. They're including sites that are further away in their assessments, but the rules and the tiers are only built on this quote-unquote local scale, which is within 100 miles based on the city's assessments. Obviously it's important for them to include some of this information, like the distance from the city, the processing type, the permitted capacity. But some of the challenges with this table and this simplistic data representation is that New York City's waste operations are still largely based on individual relationships between the waste haulers themselves and the transfer sites and the processing facilities. So, one waste hauler will have a direct relationship with a compost site, which is great. But if we want to see an expansion in this infrastructure and we want to see additional processing capacity, there needs to be more information, more easily accessible about what these sites are, where they are, how much material they have, how do you contact them, right? So there's certainly some work to be done in terms of presenting this information to industry and to the public for better transparency and for to support the growth of the industry and of processing capacity around the city. Really quickly, how residential organics works, there are basically two ways that city residents can participate in composting. As part of the city's Zero Waste by 2030 goal, they've launched a residential organics collection program. The majority of the material that gets collected in these brown bins that you can see here in this image on the left are going to, most of them are going to an anaerobic digestion facility. The collection is happening on Staten Island, which is the lower left-hand land mass in the map that we're looking at, is going to a compost site on Staten Island. There is depackaging technology in place at that site. I'm glad Mark mentioned that earlier. The contamination has been one of the huge, huge challenges on the residential collection side. They've found tricycles and bowling balls and just crazy things in the organic stream, partly due to the fact that people don't understand how to use these brown bins properly. They just see another trash can on the street, and we need people to better understand the benefits of separating the organics. Trash bags get lighter, things don't smell as bad, but we're in a difficult chicken and egg arena right now where the city is still collecting landfill more frequently than they're collecting organics from these pilot neighborhoods. So that's been part of a challenge. The other option for organics recycling for those neighborhoods that are not yet served by the collection program are different drop-offs. And some of these drop-offs are with those city brown bins, let's say at a community garden or a YMCA, where someone is stewarding that bin, making sure that it's out for collection, making sure people understand what to put into it. And that material is also going to either the anaerobic digestion facility or if they're on Staten Island, going to a compost site. But the majority of the drop-offs are much smaller scale operations. The city funds the New York City Compost Project, which is a network of nonprofit organizations that run smaller scale compost sites within the 5 boroughs. Those are fruit and vegetable only types of operations, and usually, they have great equipment on site, but they're just smaller scale. And then there's some community garden-based operations too. So, and the network is constantly expanding. More and more of these drop-off sites are opening up. So looking a little bit back to the commercial side, and forgive me for jumping around here, but I think it's important to lay the groundwork. I tend to split things down the middle in terms of scale. So if we're talking about, let's say we're working with a large hotel, right, that has 4 or 5 restaurants in it. There is zero challenge with that operation filling up a couple of 64-gallon totes regularly, right? Whether it's a couple totes a day or 6 to 10 totes every 2 days. They operate at a scale that is not challenging for a commercial waste hauling vehicle, whether it's a rendering truck or whatever type of vehicle to collect and tip. It makes sense on their route. It's fine. We're challenged right now by the fact that a lot of businesses in New York City are not large hotels. They are small food businesses, small operations, little bodegas or delis, small cafes, small restaurants, and a lot of small offices. And these operations have food waste. They have food scraps, and as we mentioned earlier, they increasingly have certified compostable packaging, and it's all going in the trash. So microhauling exists to serve that smaller scale. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the evolution of our services and then obviously how getting this electric assist cargo trike has helped us out. But we're talking about flexibility and flexibility of scale here. So back in 2015, early 2015, we started using this trailer, a bicycle and trailer that you can see in this image. This is Gwen emptying out a 5-gallon bucket into a 64-gallon tote. So you can see how we were operating up until we got under the compost trike. Hauling around, one tote, which as we know can weigh 300 to 350 pounds once it's full, and some smaller containers. And, depending on the day, depending on the route, we would be using the smaller containers to collect the material that we'd be processing in the garden, and the larger tote to collect the material that was going to our commercial hauler. Clearly, there was a maximum capacity that we could haul. There was no electric assist. This was all manpower or woman power, and it was great, a really great operation, but challenging to scale, and intentionally servicing these smallest businesses that aren't generating a lot of material. Let's see, I'm just checking back in my notes here. So back in April of 2018, we decided to launch an office composting service. So we knew that we had won this money through the USDC, and we were really excited to be able to expand our scale and our style of operation based on the demand that we were getting, which has almost entirely been from offices. Food businesses are a very low margin operation right now. It is not necessarily cheaper to compost than it is to send your food waste to landfill. But a lot of offices have a bit of extra funds that they can put towards sustainability programs, and they've been really interested in this concierge service that we offer, where rather than having a bucket and just emptying the bucket and giving the bucket back, it's more of a white glove service. So we're coming in, we have these stainless steel cans, we have compostable bags. We pull the bag, we wipe out the bin, make sure everything's really clean and neat, put a new bag in there, and then walk out. So it's a more appropriate service for offices than the 5-gallon bucket, which works well for food businesses. And just so you can compare, our older bike and trailer, you can see what that looks like on the city streets in our native environment. And then the compost trike, you can see is it's a bigger, fancier kind of thing. It has an 800-pound, or at least that's what is listed on the specs, an 800-pound haul capacity, 750-watt motor, lithium-ion battery, brake lights, running lights, great safety features. And you can see in that bottom right-hand corner, that's 2 64-gallon totes and 1 32-gallon tote. So obviously an increase in volume of what we can haul all at once. My team has had fun playing Tetris with figuring out how many bins they can fit and in what order. And every route is a little bit different. So that's been interesting. But even 2 full totes and 1 smaller tote, we're able to haul that material where it needs to go in the city. Our next frontier is looking at offering services to office buildings. We are based in Manhattan, so these are the types of operations that are reaching out to us. Our existing operation, which I just explained, is this concierge service where we're servicing tenants in a building. So rather than working directly with the building management company, we're working with individual tenants. And in one building, we're currently servicing multiple tenants on multiple floors and then consolidating just into the loading dock. So we actually aren't even using the trike for that operation. We're just sending one of our team members there, and then he's consolidating into the loading dock, and our commercial hauler collects that material overnight. We have a relationship with a hauler that's different from the relationship and contract that the building has with another waste hauler. And this is it's a new model. We're really excited to be piloting it and trying it in a few different buildings. And, we need interested building managers or building owners who are willing to be flexible and to try something new so that their tenants can have access to a service that they want. What we're looking at in the future is hybridizing our consulting and our consolidation services so that we can work with a whole building. And I'm in conversations now with a few buildings to look at that, to either, have us offer that concierge consolidation service or, work with a third party to do that. And it's been exciting. What we can do then is have our trikes focus on the small food businesses, which are underserved by our commercial hauling kind of operation in the city right now. I think I went over. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm looking forward to question and answer and connecting with any of you in the future if you have any questions. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Meredith. That was some really interesting data, and it's awesome to hear what you're up to. So I'm Isaac, and I'm representing the USCC, U.S. Composting Council, and in particular the Young Professionals Program. So you got a chance to hear about some, of the great things that are happening for large composters and a more entrepreneurial company like Meredith, and some of the opportunities and challenges they face. But sort of wherever you are or hope to be in your career, we think a great way to advance yourself in the composting industry is to be part of the U.S. Composting Council, and in particular the Young Professionals Program. So the program is open to a wide range of professionals, anyone from 21 to 40, literally across the country. You see my photo here on the top right. So as I think Carrie mentioned, I've got an MBA, from BU in Finance and Energy and Environmental Sustainability. And I had a great opportunity to research investments into food waste reduction. You folks probably know ReFed, so I worked with the founder of ReFed on that project for an impact investing company she's working for. And then I came back to New Jersey, and I helped set up the New Jersey chapter of USCC recently. And so we're really hoping to promote education and better policy in a state that's really, truly lagging in composting. And that's just, I want to mention the state chapters are another great way to get involved. I bring up my experience just to contrast it with some of the other folks that I'm working with as part of the annual Leaders Program, such as you've got Andrea over here, who's, she took courses in conservation biology, and now she works as a zero waste manager for Rural Action over in Ohio. We've got Gowery, who is over in Fort Wayne, Indiana, who's more on the lab side of composting. We've got Sarah up in Vermont working for Cassell Waste Systems, and Reese, who, is over in LA, our furthest, about as far west as you can get. And he works for, I believe, as a business executive now. but in the past has worked for Recology and some other great companies. So it's really looking for all different types of people with all different types of background who are interested in getting involved and being part of the industry. And so as part of the program, you'll get a scholarship for USCC membership. You'll get discounts on a number of different things, and perhaps even free entry to the annual conference in exchange for your work as part of the Young Professionals program. And I mentioned the annual conference, which is an amazing opportunity for networking and learning. This year it'll be in Phoenix, and we hope you all join us out there. And so as part of the program, you'll take part in putting on some great events like the Emerging Composter Competition and volunteer projects at the annual conference, and just a lot of great stuff going on there. And so then, speaking of the Emerging Composter Competition, so whether you decide to apply to be part of the Young Professionals program or not, the Emerging Composter Competition is really a great way to get involved. You heard about Meredith and what she was able to do with, her winning last year, and it's just one great example. And so, what is the competition? It's a venture competition. It's open to basically any new business that spans the entire food waste recycling industry. You see there we've got a number of different types of, ideas for what your business could be. But it's really anything, again, that's helping advance organic food waste recycling, from compostable products to collection services to technology innovation, whatever it is. There's a few key rules. You have to have been in business for less than 3 years, less than 100,000 annual revenue. But it's pretty well open to really find the best ideas and help move them forward in their business. And so why should you take part? Well, obviously you can win some prize money, but it's more than just that. We think it's a great opportunity. There's over $10,000 in prize money, which is awesome, which will be split between the top 3 competitors. But it's a great chance to work on your business. Just getting the application together is really going to be great for working on your business. But you're also going to be able to meet others in the industry, especially if you're part of the top 3 competitors and get to present in front of the conference. We've got some of the reason these companies are up here because they are great sponsors for this year. And so when you're presenting in front of them, they're going to be, ears open, looking at, what you're doing and their potential partners, their potential mentors. So we really hope you'll get involved for more than just the good that the prize money can do for you. So what does the competition process look like? Well, first round applications are currently open. They're on our website, which I'll link to on the next slide. They're due by November 15th. You see here a few of the things we're looking for. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's really stuff that any entrepreneur that's looking to manage their business and really grow it is going to be working on a day-to-day basis anyway. We just want you to tell us a little bit more about what you're doing and why do you think you can succeed? And so then you'll be judged by a group of industry experts, and we'll pick the top 3, and then the decisions of who will go to the next round are going to be made by December 1st. So you'll have plenty of time to schedule your airfare and things like that to the Compost 2019 out in Phoenix, which we're really excited about. You'll get to present in front of the conference. You're going to get a one-night hotel free, and anyone who's in the top 3 is already getting guaranteed prize money. So it's a great deal for you. So that, I think, pretty much wraps up the details of what you need to know about the conference, but or about the competition. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions for you. And you can find the application and more details on compostcouncil.org/emergingcomposter. And you can also just reach out to me at isaacberg@gmail.com. And I think I'll just keep it brief, and we can take questions from there.
Great. Thank you, Isaac, and thank you to all our presenters. We've had quite a number of questions come in. Some of them have been answered. Some of them haven't. I'm going to start with one going back to Mark and Laura. I think that, I'll summarize a little bit, but they were asking about what kind of pressure are you under to expand your list of things that you're willing to accept from municipalities or from businesses, for that matter, given your wide network and your strong market presence?
Kerry, the answer is, our authorizations, our permitting, is limited, where we really can't take in the post-consumer food waste, but we do hear from some of them. But I would say that here, where we're at, we still have communities that don't have green waste recycling, so we're not as involved. It has not evolved as much as some other areas of the country. We like I say, have bedroom communities out here that have 60, 70,000 people, and they're still not still not recycling brush and leaves and grass. So and our landfill here, owned by the city of Dallas, is the absolute cheapest disposal by a long shot. So it's kind of backwards there. People are rewarded for taking it to the landfill because recycling options are more expensive. But we don't. We they want these, and plenty of recycling coordinators with different communities and major companies and things like that. We do have pallets of wood waste and materials like that come in from Caterpillar, DFW Airport, Port of Houston, different people like that. But the food waste and things like that, the markets really just haven't evolved as far as on the collection side of it. So we hear from them, and they want to do it, but they just haven't quite put the pieces to bed yet, other parts of the puzzle.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, next question I'm going to send over to Meredith. I had a couple questions about approaching reluctant owners, whether it's restaurants or businesses. Why don't you talk about how you might approach someone who is less than enthusiastic about participating in a composting program?
Sure. Yeah, there are a lot of people, a lot of different opinions on how to do this and why, and there are a lot of reactions. So, if it's a coffee shop or a restaurant, the most important thing for me, and again, New York City, every single city is different in terms of how waste pricing works, all of these different things. Mark, I'm glad you mentioned the challenges around landfilling being cheaper. I'd love to see a national carbon tax that could help change that, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Restaurant owners will all react to different things. So in some cases, they might be asking me this question because their customers are asking them how to compost or why they don't have a compost bin if they have certified compostable packaging. The cost is usually the biggest challenge, the biggest thing to overcome. And that's why waste pricing is important to understand. If I can know who the existing waste hauler is and what the business is currently paying for. Sometimes if it's a contract or a waste hauling relationship that has been in place for a long time, like I was working with a commercial kitchen who had the same hauler and for 40 years, and they're probably paying far under market rate, and they were really interested in composting, but it was going to triple their their regular waste bill. That's just simply not going to work for a struggling catering company. So, it is really challenging, and one has to understand who they're speaking to and why that person is reaching out to them. So that's usually the first question I ask is, why are you interested? And what I've found is that food businesses, they fall into two camps, really. Some that are that have the extra budget to be able to do this, even if it is not less expensive, and then those who really might want to but don't have the flexibility in their budget. And that's an unfortunate truth right now for food businesses. And then, offices fall into a totally different category because, their waste pricing is very different, and they do have more flexibility in terms of what they're paying for. But if I didn't answer your question, please feel free to reach out, and I would love to give any tips. I speak to businesses all the time, and the more we can get composting, the better. But we obviously need to have the city infrastructure in place to allow for that, depending on where you are.
Thanks, Meredith. Appreciate that. And also, while you're speaking, there's a couple of questions with some more details from your presentation. One about the bokashi, and do you also bokashi meats or manures, or is that only a vegetative thing? And then in terms of your working with offices, maybe a little bit more detail about what your services you're supplying in what you call the white glove service.
Sure. Yeah. Great. Those are two really good questions. So with bokashi, we are accepting meat and dairy, and we aren't really having any issues with it. The fermentation process helps to sterilize the material and helps to soften it a little bit. We still find a chicken bone here or there. If we're working with a larger commercial kitchen or a kitchen that's using large stock bones, we will put those out to our commercial hauler rather than trying to process them ourselves. But yeah, for the most part, that works really well. It can get a little smelly, fermented food scraps. It smells like pickled food scraps. But it's honestly a great process because it's containerized. And, it takes us about an hour to load between 5 and 7 35-gallon bins into one of our ASP bins with, 2 or 3 people. So any issues with smell don't really last very long. And then, everything is layered into that ASP bin. We're layering yard waste and some material from a past batch and some coffee grinds, and then this fermented food waste material. Bokashi is an absolutely amazing thing, and I do recommend that anyone who's curious to Google it, watch videos, and, again, reach out if you're interested. But you can order inoculated chaff or wheat bran. You can order it on Amazon. You can do bokashi composting in your kitchen, bury stuff in your backyard. The traditional method of bokashi composting is actually to use this fermentation method and then bury everything underground. It's sort of a direct soil remediation activity. But we've raised it above ground so that we can harvest that compost and use it in our community garden. In terms of the office service, that's a great question. So in addition to obviously offering the collection, we're doing training and education. So we'll come in, do a site visit, understand the operation, help to coordinate whatever is needed. Maybe they need insurance documentation. Maybe, we can only access the site through the freight elevator. So, working out all of those logistics ahead of time, and then doing a presentation. So I do a lunch and learn, the lunchtime presentation for office staff. Obviously, I prefer when the whole staff is there, but sometimes it's, only the most diehard sustainability interested people. And I talk about trash for 35 minutes, and people generally really love it. It's hard to find this information about how trash works, where your recycling goes. People think there's just a machine that figures it all out for them, and that's obviously not true. there are people at the end of all of these operations. And, you know, I see shock on people's faces every single time, and I really think that it's a great way to convert people into better understanding infrastructure in general, and better appreciating the importance of putting things in the right containers and hopefully reducing waste and reducing food waste in particular.
Thanks. Here's a question that just came in for all of you, and to ask about your experience with compostable bags. If you're using them, is there particular brands that you're recommending, or what your experiences might be? Why don't we start over there with down Texas, and then move up to the Northeast.
Gary, we have the city of Houston using compostable bags with great success on it's green waste. You know, they work outstanding. One of the things the city of Houston does is the bags, most of them that are the ASTMD 6400, you know, work just fine. Or there might be a newer spec, but the city of Houston has approval process, and the bags are required to have a seal printed on them that says the city of Houston approved. That way they don't get mixed up with other translucent type blue bags or what have you, so that they have the city of Houston approved for a seal on it for green waste recycling, and their operators only pick those up, and they are available at all the major retailers, all the, you know, the Walmart, Lowe's, Depot, all that stuff. They're not, so they're through their regular purchasing channels where they get them. But we get to approve them. We test them, approve them, and the city will give them a authorization to put the city seal on them and market them in Houston.
It's by far the most successful kind of program, using those certified compostable bags, because the material is so clean.
Yeah, the real difference is the city of Houston does a great job, and we've worked with them, but they're you know, for a long time, and when the collection workers can see the, you know, the trash in the bags, they leave them on the curb, and the city of Houston has a unusual that their supervisors are actually peace officers of some kind. They have a policeman's badge on their belt, and you know, their you know, collection supervisors can write a ticket. They don't have to get anybody involved, so they'll write a homeowner that's you know putting the trash in his compost bags, and he'll write him a warning ticket, and then the next week the week he does it again, it's a real live ticket, and they don't have to you know, it shortens the process. They don't have to go to somebody else to get code enforcement to come out or anything, and then they write them a ticket right then and there, and it works very good. So it winds up being some you know, very, very clean feedstock.
Meredith, anything from you?
Yeah, sure, I'll jump in. I'm glad that certified compostable bags exist, but I prefer not to allow trends to continue in this single-use disposable direction. So, you know, you can take that however you want to. Our office clients do use them. You know, we have to. You know, you can't have a bagless stainless steel compost bin in an office. We do hope and suggest that our food business clients just avoid using bags altogether. But it's really challenging to have 64-gallon totes that are full of food scraps and not use bags. So we do use quite a few of them. We work with a company called Commit to Green. They're a certified minority and women-owned business based in the city. Those bags are BPI certified. They're produced in China. They're really nice. They have cute print on them, and they're bright green, which is great. They're durable. You know, one of the challenges, obviously, is that certified compostable products do have a shelf life, so one needs to keep that in mind and not purchase 12 times what you need to use in a single year. You're wasting money as well as the actual product. But wherever possible, we do try to get people to go bagless, but otherwise we are using them. We can't process them in our own operation. We haven't tried. Testing is something we're really interested in. We just haven't had the bandwidth to do it. But we send those products to our commercial hauler, and they go out to a site that can handle them, but that site prefers not to get a lot of them. So there is still an industry shift that needs to happen in order to be able to process the volume of this material that we are generating.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Meredith is saying a little bit. In what I've seen in New Jersey is that the ability to process organic food waste at all in the state, never mind the bags, is pretty limited, and it's starting to grow. It's starting to take off, but it's always interesting to think about whether you're offering, a compostable product like bags or silverware or forks. Do you have the infrastructure set up to actually deal with it once it's in use? So it's always something interesting to think about.
Meredith, one quick question. This was interesting that someone was asking about your bokashi and why you do that ahead of the aerated static pile. Why not go straight into ASP?
Yeah, part of it is education. Part of it is educational, proving that this is a really cool method. But also, we are based in a school garden in a highly dense residential and commercial neighborhood, and there are a lot of rats in New York City. So doing this first phase of fermentation just helps to reduce those challenges. We've wanted to be able to accept meat and dairy from the very beginning because most businesses don't want to have to separate their meat and cheese from the rest of their food scraps. And we wanted to be sure that whatever process we had underway was, respecting the needs of our community and making sure that we didn't get any complaints. And so far, so good.
Great. Mark, one question for you, and then this probably might be one of the last questions. Question about how much, and obviously you don't have to answer this, but they were asking about what's the balance on your income from tip fees versus product sales, and where does that balance?
Quite different. Our tipping fees are about 15% of our revenue, and the rest is product sales.
Okay, I'll just chime in. From my perspective, with the U.S. Composting Council, I get around. I do a lot of training of composters around the country, and I would say, as a broad average, that's way off. That's way on one tail. I'd say on average, commercial composters probably make 70 to 75% of their income on tip fees, and then 20 to 30% on revenue sales. But it varies. It goes all the way from 0 to 100 on one end to 0 and 100 the other end. Although the people who are making no money on product sales and everything on a tip fee tend to not last very long, because you end up with the 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound box situation. Let's see. We got time for maybe one or two more questions, but we're just about out of time. Charles from New Jersey asked a question about what can we do to find more quickly composting, be able to turn around materials quicker at smaller sites, so that to bring in more volume material. I don't know if anyone wants to try and answer that one. That's maybe a little bit outside.
Speaking from the perspective of a smaller site, we don't. Our biggest challenge is that we wouldn't really have anywhere to send our compost once it's produced. New York City does not have a huge market right now for compost purchasing, so we're basically just processing what we're using in our garden. Sounds like you're in a different place where you're trying to get rid of your material because you have someone to purchase it. I don't know. I mean, scaling your operation within the state regulations. Modular, like our ASP system is super modular. So the way we're doing it, we could just continue to build bays. I don't know if that's really answering your question though.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that
and
Carrie. On the farm dirt, that last slide with the living earth, Danny uses the aerostatic pile, and it works out great for him given the scale of his operation. But again, you've got to have the outlet to sell the material, finished product into.
And there are some limits to biology, and we pretty much in order to take the process to the point where you've got a reasonably mature product, kind of the limit to that is about really 6 weeks is almost at the end of the limit. 8 weeks. Most composters take 12 to 16 weeks. Some take much longer time. You can people trade space against technology. So if you got more space, you can use a slower method. If you're space limited, you try and maximize your throughput. There's a great book coming out. I've actually just reviewed it on community scale composting. That's going to provide a tremendous amount of information. That's probably coming out in the next couple of months. It looks like it's almost ready to go. It looks like we are out of time. So I want to appreciate everyone that came and participated today. Again, we've got, please join us at the Composting Collaborative at compostingcollaborative.org. If there are questions that didn't get answered and you'd like to send them to us, please do so. We'll do our best to answer your questions, and watch for future webinars on a variety of topics. We really cover the waterfront in this series. So thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Carrie.